Hi folks, I'm Alan Watt and this is Cutting Through the Matrix on October the 4th, 2011. For newcomers, help yourself to the audios which you'll find at cuttingthroughthematrix.com. There's hundreds to choose from, and hopefully you'll find the big system that you've been born into, the one that's not mentioned by the media, and the one that's been working very hard for an awful long time to bring in a form of world government, which it doesn't stop simply when you reach a target goal. They've always got new targets to reach because, you see, it's a never-ending story in a sense of the improvement of the species, or if you like, the enslavement of the species to the superior ones who already rule it. That's as simple as that. But anyway, help yourself to the audios. You'll find out there's a parallel government, been here for a long time. Professors and those involved have been very happy to churn out their books over the last 150 years or so, but most folk don't bother reading them because they're not sexy, they're not fun, they're rather dry, boring stuff, very bureaucratic. But you'll find that's where the truth always lies, because we're kept in a kind of Disneyland with entertainment, with regular media. And their job is not to ever tell you what's really going on or what the long-term goals and plans are. In fact, there's no real journalism anymore at all, except for maybe those who are involved in the big systems, the big society, the one above the one that we know, that deal with bringing the world into this new planned society, like the Council on Foreign Relations. That's where the higher journalists go. There's lots of them work full-time with them around the world because they have offices across the whole globe now. And we're well into it. Anyway, help yourself to the audios. Remember too, all the sites you see listed at cuttingthroughthematrix.com have transcripts for print up as well as the audios. And you can go into alanwattsentinel.eu for transcripts in other languages. You can also help me keep going too by purchasing the books and discs that's for sale at cuttingthroughthematrix.com. And you can do so from the US to Canada by a personal check. Still, in this day and age, you can still use a personal check, and they do come through. Or you can use an international postal money order from the post office for the same price as a regular postal order, basically. And you can also use PayPal. You'll find out how to do it at cuttingthroughthematrix.com. Across the world, Western Union, MoneyGram, and you've got PayPal again. Remember, straight donations are really awfully welcome right now in this time of inflation and all the rest of it, and quantitative easing as they call it, which is just the same thing basically as they inflate things out of proportion to make sure that you go into a world of austerity and you learn how to eat less and buy less actually. And the cash that used to jingle in your pockets and wonder what to do with will go in fees and taxes for all the things that you really need for bare essentials. And that's what really this whole new austerity idea across the world's about. Energy is the key, and all energy units will be paid for dearly by you. You're going to get a lot less of them for a lot more that you pay, but that is the coming system. It's already been set up actually. It's a matter of implementing it a step at a time. Some countries are roaring ahead with it, like Australia, but we're all supposed to follow it because it's a global agenda, an absolutely global agenda. And the last people to know that they're global, of course, are the hard-working, tax-paying citizens of each little country as they go up and down this roller coaster of financial crisis. You know, there's never been a generation since central banking, when private banking that is, was established for governments. There's never been a generation that's had a life of peace. It's either complete warfare with someone else, run by the central banks, who always divvy it up at the end because all taxpayers on both sides win, or lose I should say, and they have to pay up the costs. And the rest of the time is economic warfare and layoffs. Back with more after this break. Hi folks, I'm back and we're cutting through the matrix. I was just thinking, as I say, that people never get a chance to relax in one generation. It doesn't happen. It hasn't happened for an awful long time. And as I say, Parents, grandparents are always off at war, and now it's our turn too, same sort of thing. In between the wars we have recessions and depressions and plundering by the banksters, and this is supposed to be called a normal life. It's just astonishing really when you look at all the breakthroughs in science. We're told about these wonderful things they can do and things they're working upon, and yet they can't get the money out of the system straightened out. It's just too complex, you see, and special folk have to be brought in to deal with it. It's too complex and mystifying to everyone. It's voodoo, really, and it's a form of voodoo. So the high priests of cash really are the ones who can understand it. I think their deity made it up, and no one speaks to them except their deity. So anyway, no one else can understand it, apparently. With all these courses and universities and degrees and everything else, they just can't figure it out. It's just amazing. But really, we're run by a con game, of course, and that's the bottom line, because all agreements between citizens and government are based on chronology, where they pretend to serve you and you pretend that they are. And even though they're driving you about and living high in the hog, a lot better than you'll ever do. But we go along with it, and that is what it's about, really. It's compliance of the citizenry. And we accept the nonsense from the mainstream media. It's interesting, too, the difference in US politics and, say, the British system. Where in Britain, they kind of laugh at each other across the house, they call it, the different parties, and they guffaw. They actually have guffawing. You've got to learn how to do it. You can go to Eton and Cambridge and you learn how to guffaw very, very politely. But they do that all the time when they know that the other boy's been ripping off money from the public purse for his own projects. And that's happening in Canada, too, part of the British Commonwealth system right now, in fact, where they've all got fingers in the cookie jar, and they're laughing at each other and doing this guffaw stuff across the House floor. Nothing happens about it. It doesn't matter how much cash has been ripped off. I mean, one guy put 50 million into his own riding, supposedly under the last G20 meeting, and of course it didn't go anywhere near his riding, but that had nothing to do with it. Things like that, you see. So that's normal politics for outside of America. But in America, they pretend, of course, that they're far more open, because they build the president up into almost a kingly figure, and that's something, a legacy they've been stuck with, unfortunately. Because, see, the rest of us are lumbered with kings and queens, whether we like it or not. And the US, I think it's part of the celebrity thing. People want to worship two-legged monsters that walk, and talk occasionally too. I think that's part of the problem. And they elevate the president up into almost a kingly position. And Hollywood does a great job too. And all the movies, there's so many movies out where the final call on anything is to the president who talks and he's just so with it and never panics and so on like that. And that's the image, of course, that's created by fiction. But that's what you get. And they're closer to fiction than most countries with the reality. Because we've watched, and we've gone through many techniques of grooming people by the Council on Foreign Relations for the presidency. And like Quigley said, not a single president, or prime minister for that matter, in the Commonwealth countries has been elected. And that was in the 1960s. He says in the last 60 years that hasn't been a member of this august organization. And it hasn't changed today. They're all picked in advance. They all attend the Bilderberger meetings. They're all groomed, tested to make sure they'll stick to their scripts, which are written by other people. And so we watch this facade, It's like in the movies where they put in a stuntman and you think it's still the real guy. And there's Sean Connery as James Bond or whoever it happens to be, bouncing off of skyscrapers and landing in some stacks of paper and getting up and walking away. I mean, this is the sort of stuff we're given for presidents and prime ministers, really. So it's quite funny that we go along with all of this nonsense. Well, all the time, there are so many global meetings on the go. Every week, I doubt if even a prime minister or a president can keep up with them. There's a massive staff keeps up with that. And I bet if you've been for 5 years, you wouldn't know everybody's names and all the different governmental departments, for the heads of them, that is. You wouldn't even get to know them. There's so many of them. It's a monster. Anyway, we'll go along with the farce here, and it's quite interesting that Obama, when he was coming in to power, said he was going to go for transparency in government, which is really a novel idea. And it'd be a miraculous idea too if it was to come true. But of course, there's always those folk who like nice sounding things and they want to wish, they believe in wishing.
And wishing's awfully nice at times when things look awfully bleak and dark. So you hear the nice things said to you, and then you say, I wish that was true. And these are the ones who are positive thinkers, you see. Government really, and the whole election process is about positive thinkers. And don't look at anything negative, whatever you do, because, that's a downer. I've met New Agers who actually say to you, oh, you said that doesn't mean it's going to happen. Like, you just cause it to happen because you said it could happen. That's how crazy they are. But that's, again, positive thinking. And it all came out of these motivational courses they give you. If you listen to any Obama's speeches, there's nothing concrete he says about anything. It's all up in the clouds somewhere and heavenly and visions, and he looks up to the sky just like, some evangelists do, because they're trained to do this stuff. And these are all the hand gestures, because it's another language too, which you actually understand subconsciously, but you're not aware he's actually doing it to you. And you see him as a godly figure. And it's very well done in the States, because it's more like Hollywood, you see. You get the professionals. Anyway, Obama was talking about opacity in government, really, and transparency, and he was to get an award for it. So anyway, it says, this article, I've shelled it for over a week because it says shh, it says shh, Obama gets an anti-secrecy award. It says, President Obama finally and quietly accepted his Transparency Award from the open government community this week in a closed, undisclosed meeting at the White House on Monday. The secret presentation, that's transparency, happened almost 2 weeks after the White House inexplicably postponed the ceremony, which was expected to be open to the press pool. This time Obama met quietly in the Oval Office with Gary Bass of OMB, I guess the Men in Black watches at OMB, and with Tom Blanton of the National Security Archive, Daniel Bryan of the Project on Government Oversight, Lucy Dalglish of the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, and Patrice McDermott of OpenGovernment.org, without disclosing the meeting on his public schedule or letting photographers or print reporters into the room. Our understanding going into the meeting was that it would have a pool of photographer and a print reporter, and it turned out to be a private meeting, Bass told Politico. He was so on point, so on target in the conversation with us, it's baffling why he would not want that message to be more broadly heard by reporters and the public interest community and the public generally. Just hours before the White House put off the original event, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney was defiant in his defense of Obama's transparency record against criticism that it might have been premature. The President has demonstrated a commitment to transparency and openness that is greater than any administration has shown in the past, and he's been committed to that since he ran for President, and he's taken a significant number of measures to demonstrate that, Carney says in a test exchange with Fox News reporter Wendell Goler on March the 16th. It says, the transparency advocates who presented the awards to Obama said the recognition is important because despite the work left to be done, Obama has done a lot to change the government posture towards openness issues. And it says, but others believe the positive reinforcement was more than a little unnecessary. I don't feel moved today to say thank you, Mr. President, said Steve Aftergood, the director of Project on Government Secrecy at the Federation of American Scientists, but he says he understands the award to be aspirational in recognition of Obama's potential to do more on the transparency front. So you get awards really because you're thinking about doing something. You see, it says, in that sense, one could say it resembles the award at the Nobel Peace Prize. Aftergood said, it's not because Obama brought peace to anyone, but because people hoped he would be a force for good in the world. Again, that's that positive thinking stuff. And maybe that's the way to understand this award. So, that's how things are, you see. We go along with all this stuff and the nice, transparency. And a man of the people, just an ordinary Joe. That's all it is. And this is the rubbish that we go along with our whole lives long, from every politician actually, and all governments. And it does take the complicity of people to go along with, bullshit actually. And we do across the world. We're trained that way, and we want to just have some kind of peace, Or you can learn to copy those in Oxford and Eton and guffaw like they do in politics and they do in Canada and the British Parliament. So anyway, this is the world, as I say, it takes complicity. We can't really blame anybody else, really. We're all part of it, aren't we? Because they're actually people who want to parrot everything they get on the general news every night of the week, because they want to believe it. They really want to believe it. They want to believe the world's quite nice and cozy, and real people are up there sweating, just like the movies, worrying about your safety and stuff like that. And in reality, the whole concept of government's been twisted around 180 degrees, especially in the US.